Now, eNCA business anchor Arabile Gumede has just joined us in the studio to discuss the effect this replacement of the Finance Minister has had so far on the markets and what's likely to come up during the day. Arabile, good morning. Thank you very much for your time. First question from my perspective, from a market perspective, was this an expected move?
Definitely not. I think the markets are definitely in shock. Today, South African markets at around 9 o'clock will wake up to some really horrific news. I think it'll send shockwaves across the investment community. Europe itself is going to be very shocked at what has happened. I think for one, it's because Nhlanhla Nene did instill some sort of confidence, a lot more than many would think actually, because he had held so many positions in Treasury prior to being Finance Minister. So a lot of confidence had been built up. He had even been Deputy Finance Minister before being announced as Minister. So, policy stability was key, and he held up that end of the bargain.
So markets don't like uncertainty.
Certainly not.
I was just wondering, President Zuma's statement, which we've just played and we have a hard copy of, nowhere does it say why.
Yeah.
What could be the reasons for removing Nhlanhla Nene?
There are so many speculations to this. And, the thoughts are as well that immediately when the finance minister at the time, Nhlanhla Nene, had said no to the nuclear deal, which Jacob Zuma has been vehemently going on about as it must happen, Nhlanhla Nene said we have no money for this. It's said to cost in the region of around 1 trillion rand. Let's remember that 1 trillion is how much we collect from taxes alone in this country. Where would we be able to fund, 1 trillion rand with investors as well shying away from South Africa? So Nhlanhla Nene pulled the noose and said no. And at the same time, he also said no with regards to SAA renegotiating the Airbus deal, which would have cost even more millions, and said, we can't spend all this money. So, Nhlanhla Nene had made a name for himself now in curbing spending in South Africa and trying to find other ways to get revenue. And the markets really like that.
And we saw how they responded with the rand tumbling to an all-time low overnight.
Yeah, 15 rand 30, the lowest it reached ever. It's now settled at around 14.87. But in the context of things, let's remember that the rand was trading at around 14 rand 54, 14 rand 50. This was it was an all-time low in terms of everything, but it was okay-ish. Now it's just drastically.
How important is it for the markets as well to understand who is David van Rooyen? The president has mentioned some of his roles in the statement, that he was a whip for the Standing Committee on Finance, so he's been involved in Parliament on Finance, a whip for Economic Transformation Cluster, but also he was a mayor at some point of Mirafong municipality.
Yeah, certainly troublesome Mirafong, let's remember, because even in about 10 years ago, his house was even burnt down because the community did not feel he was a great mayor at that point in time as well. So it's very important for the market.
So this man he didn't have a good track record as a mayor of Mirafong.
Certainly not up until this point. We still don't know if he has a good track record in the Economic and Transformation Cluster even, or the as whip of
the Finance Committee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think at this point in time, a lot of people are asking themselves, where does this man come from? Let's remember where our finance ministers come from. 94 to 96, we had Chris Liebenberg, who at the time was even CEO of Nedbank. So he was quite known. Then we had Trevor Manuel for the longest amount of time, and he increased stability.
When he started, he was not trusted, but he proved himself.
Yes, but again, he had risen up the ranks. He had already become a formidable member of parliament by the time he had made his way into the seat of finance minister. Then we had Pravin Gordhan, who, even held a position at SARS before being announced in that position. Then we had Nhlanhla Nene, who had been deputy finance minister. Now we had somebody who's completely unknown. Markets certainly won't take well to this.
Thank you very much. That's eNCA's business anchor, Arabile Gumede.